Thank you so much for joining us here at WBZ. We love doing these sort of cut-ins on the CBS News Boston stream. I figure there's no better opportunity than to invite our executive weather producer, Terry Eliasen, on to talk weather. A lot of people, as we flip the calendar over to April, the mindset changes. It's full bore right to spring, but we're looking behind us.
I'm wondering if because the last time I did some of these live things, it's typically when the weather's really bad. Like, oh geez, who's this guy, and why is he on the air? What's coming this week? In actuality, yes, there is a big storm coming this week, but this is just something new we're trying, and maybe it'll catch on, and maybe we'll get some legs. But yeah, I think the thing on everybody's minds right now is, did I hear snow in the forecast this week? And the answer is yes, but we're still a little bit, so we're talking about Wednesday night into Thursday, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but there's still a little bit to be determined, I guess.
Yes. And we hate saying that because it leaves the possibility for everyone's imaginations to run wild.
And go on Twitter and you see all the crazy maps that folks may be posting. I actually saw, starting, I want to say it was last Thursday or Friday, on Twitter, saw some just throw up the model and look, check this out, and that's kind of dangerous. I mean, the model output is not to be. It needs to be gone. You need to go through it with a meteorological comb, so to speak.
And there's a lot going into a forecast that the computers may not take into consideration. We talk about 10-to-1 models all the time, and that's just a pure mathematical equation. It sees temperatures that are cold enough for snow. It sees the amount of available moisture, and they do a multiplication problem, right? Yep. But that's not reality. It's much more than that.
And early winter and late spring, or even early spring storms, you just got to take into effect that, okay, first of all, the sun angle is high.
Yep.
The ground is getting warmer. The temperatures at the surface throughout this whole storm will be in the low to mid 30s at best, at coldest, right? So how much snow can accumulate? The model might put out an official number of, say, 12 inches, but what does that mean really? That's a 10-to-1 ratio, like you were saying, which, given temperatures in the low to mid 30s, it may be a 5-to-1 ratio.
That's everything sticking to the ground and not melting away.
Right.
Absolutely.
So a lot to think about this time of year. Almost like at a late October or November storm. You can't just rip and read the forecast. You need to take into account, okay, time of year, ground, how warm is the ground, how high is the sun angle. Again, even if the sun's not out, it still matters. So all that being said, hopefully by tonight, I talked to Eric Fisher a little bit earlier, hopefully by tonight, we can give some sort of idea of numbers, but we're really at this point talking more about the elevated areas as opposed to the Boston area for snow.
Sure. Which really has been the case kind of all winter. That we've been talking about the elevations. We picked up some good snow totals. Still less than average, but still better snow totals than Boston. We're 9.7 inches for the entire winter. If going into this winter, I would ask you, there's no way that we can have less snow than last year. What would you have said?
I wouldn't say 100% to that, but yeah, obviously. We thought it would be a warmer than average winter. We knew El Nino was coming on, so we figured, okay, there probably won't be a ton of snow, but all it takes is one or two events to get a foot, 2 feet of snow. It doesn't take much.
Just nickel and dime yourself up. Yeah, absolutely.
Again, is this more of a trend continuing? It looks like right now, if you take this winter and last winter, we've never had 2 consecutive winters with this amount, the least amount of snow we've seen in 2 consecutive winters.
Yeah.
Is this just a blip on the radar, or is this the new thing? I think a lot of people are wondering, is winter dead here?
Yep.
And of course, I don't think so. But
so Eric showed an interesting graphic last week about the last 5 Marches. You've just been able to put your snow shovel away.
Yeah.
You're done with it. And basically after that, we're essentially done with winter. We may pick up some light snowfalls. We've picked up some historically big ones, though, too. Thinking today, the anniversary, what was it, 24 years ago?
1997.
97? Okay.
Yes.
So I'm not going to do the math.
27 years ago?
27 years ago.
Yes.
There you go.
25.4 inches of snow on March 31st, April 1st, 1997, the April Fool's Day storm.
Yep.
So, yes, it can happen. Of course, that was 27 years ago, and the atmosphere, the environment, was a little bit different then.
Right.
It could absolutely happen again.
Yeah. You just really need to have that precedent cold air in place in order to overcome that higher sun angle.
Yeah, and you need to have a very dynamic storm. So I think the best chance of anywhere outside of elevation in this storm getting snow accumulation is really going to be if the storm really has to draw down air from above. So you need a real dynamic, powerful storm that's going to draw that cold air down from the upper atmosphere and bring it to the surface. So you need very heavy precipitation. And again, even with that, I still am not sure how readily we'll see accumulation on like paved surfaces.
Right. It's going to be hard. Let's, if we could, head over to Weather Select. And we'll just kind of step through. I believe these are our Futurecast models that we can look at. And we'll take you through the next couple of days, and then we'll show you the models as we go into Wednesday and Thursday. So first I want to take you into this afternoon. We'll start to see some clearing skies the later into the afternoon we go, and with that, temperatures respond really nicely to the amount of sunshine we get. So it wouldn't surprise me if some places inland get to the mid to upper 50s to near 60 degrees.
And let me just say, enjoy it while there may not be much more sunshine for the rest of the week.
I know, yes.
Yet again, but sorry.
No. I appreciate that aside. We'll start to build the clouds once again heading into Tuesday, and this really starts to get into that storm system. We go unsettled heading into Tuesday evening, and then what we'll see is that precipitation, that initial kind of burst of rain move through. Now, initially, this is going to be kind of just hit or miss showers. It looks to be more south of Boston and maybe west of Boston. But then we start to get into the meat and potatoes of the system heading into Wednesday. Now, Futurecast is showing some changeover from rain over to maybe a mix, and then in the higher elevation, some snow. But as we mentioned, a lot of that is likely just going to melt away.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how much during the daylight hours on Wednesday. I don't think we're going to see anything significant anywhere, honestly. Like, again, another factor this time of year, you really, during the day, if the storm's not, if it's not pouring down precipitation, it's really going to be hard to see anything meaningful. Sure, there could be some wet flakes mixed in out west, out in central Mass, some sleet pellets, but I would be shocked if anything significant happened during the daylight hours. It's going to take until Wednesday night, I think, for anything meaningful to occur.
But even if snow does fall and it melts, that adds to the groundwater that we have. And so we're talking about some heavy rains along the way too.
At the very least, whatever happens with the snow, we're talking another 1 to 3 inches most likely of water, which... the water table is right. I mean, we've just had so many of these events. I think we've had 11, I want to say, just in this year, in the last 3 months, 11 events with an inch or more in Boston. Just outrageous, really.
And this will be the 12th, it looks like at least. This is a different model, a little bit more longer range model, a little less resolution, but still showing the storm deepening just to the south of New England. This is sort of your atypical nor'easter in that it's more elongated, it's kind of going right over us, and it's going to take its time too.
Yeah, and a lot of folks may be looking up to Vermont, New Hampshire, and saying, "Wow, could I go skiing again this weekend?"
Yeah.
I mean, they are gonna. I do think there'll be some mixing in southern parts of central New Hampshire and Vermont, but up in the whites, the greens, I mean, the answer is probably yes.
Yeah.
I do think the ski season has been prolonged already with that storm a week or 10 days ago, and this will probably dump a little bit more.
Definitely. When it comes to impacts, I love showing this because it's really kind of a quick snapshot of what we can look like. And I know I have moderate here for all of them, but let's break down each threat as it comes. So first I have their rain.
Yeah, again,
as we just mentioned.
Yeah,
right?
1 to 3 inches of water, not what we need right now. I still feel like even with that, I think we're going to be okay. As far the main stem rivers, we're not looking at any widespread massive flooding, but again, we're just adding to that already. The water table that's already saturated. Yep. So not necessarily what we need.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the opposite. Yeah. Snowfall, we mentioned it too, but the type of snow is also important too. When we get to after dark, this could be the pasty, heavy snow. We've already seen some trees starting to bud. We're not at leaf out just yet, which is good for us.
Yeah.
But still, if it's pasty and we've got some buds on the trees, that could take down some limbs.
Yeah, right. Out in central Worcester County, northern Worcester County, certainly in the Berkshires, all it takes, you get even 2, 3, 4 inches of the heavy wet stuff on the limbs, a little bit of wind, which we could see late Wednesday night into Thursday, and power outage is definitely a concern out that way, for sure.
The coastline, we've been talking about it a lot, the coastline replenishment projects that Salisbury, Newburyport, it seems like every other day a home is being moved back from the bluff.
Yeah.
I think that this storm is especially dangerous to those coastlines because it is such a long duration. It's just going to tear away at those beaches.
Yeah, I mean, I think the time to be concerned probably the most would be the Wednesday night, early Thursday. There's a high tide Thursday morning. It's around 7:40 in Boston. That's probably the peak of whatever coastal flooding might happen. We're not forecasting any major coastal flooding.
Yep.
The tides astronomically are low. But I saw one model that showed a 3 foot or a little bit more than that, a 3.2 foot storm surge potential. So even with a low astronomical tide, I still think there could be some minor pockets of moderate flooding given that. And of course, as you were saying, the beach erosion just continues.
Yeah.
I mean, you just can't bring in enough sand.
No.
I can't even imagine living in a place like, Salisbury right now, Hampton up that way. They've been battered all winter long.
Yeah.
Here comes another one.
And there is no great answer for them.
There really
either.
isn't.
Yeah. I did have a conversation with Governor Healy a couple of days ago. We'll be releasing that on WBZ soon. But she mentioned they're looking into all aspects of what they can do to help. But the problem is it's private property, and
That's right.
It's a fine line that they have to thread a little bit.
That's right. It's a problem that is not going away, and of course you've mentioned this in several pieces with sea level rise and more intense extreme storms. There's only so much you can do, really. You can build a bigger seawall, you can bring in more sand, but the ocean's going to do what the ocean wants to do. I would not want to. Well, let me rephrase that. My wife would. I was going to say I would not want to live right on the coast right now. My wife would be like, "No, we do."
We do, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But it's definitely a problem that's not going anywhere.
Wind. Also going to be a factor, and it combines with the other things that we talked about, right? And it kind of feeds into the coastline, the elongated wind, the rain. If you get 1 to 3 inches on top of an already soggy ground, power outages, and then that's snow too. So wind is like a secondary factor, but it is a main player in the storm.
Yeah, and as usual for these types of storms, or for winds coming off the water, Cape Cod, the islands, the immediate coastline at highest risk for gusts over 40, over 50. Inland, not as much, but again, doesn't take much wind if you've got 3 inches of snow somewhere, say in Fitchburg, weighing on the leaf or the limbs. Doesn't take much wind to cause some kind of power outage.
Absolutely. I love this graphic too because it just shows how much of a sort of snow drought that we've been in Boston. It's been, to say the least, kind of rough. 766 straight days since we've had a decent snow in Boston. Now that's not to say other places have picked up some good snows. Boston just struck out a few times.
More than 2 years without a 4-inch accumulation in Boston. That's kind of outrageous.
Yeah.
It's now I live just northwest of town, and I can tell you, it's obviously we've had a little more snow than Boston, but not much.
Right.
Folks everywhere, I think anywhere in southern New England, even out in Worcester County, are saying again, are winters a thing of the past? Is this the new norm? Is this the new winter? And I would say, probably not. Again, El Nino was a big factor this year, but I do think that our snow seems to be coming more in spurts now. We don't have. Even a couple winters ago when we had decent snow, it came all within a couple bursts. We had a 12-hour burst one night, a 6-hour burst the other. We get intense snow, and then a couple days later it's 50 degrees.
Yep. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, that's how we get averages. But when we look back 10 or so years to see where we're moving towards, is it the new normal? I'm definitely, because this is a livelihood for so many people. I did this story up in Lake Winnipesaukee. Our winter's getting warmer. So yeah, it'll be something certainly. Are my kids going to grow up without sled riding, every other day?
Probably not, right? But it's hard to not at least question it given the last couple winters we've had, what's going on.
Absolutely.
Now, not to get way ahead of ourselves, but I do think that this pattern will probably, this insane wet pattern probably it looks like La Nina is coming on for the summer. That's probably a whole nother podcast. But typically that could mean a hot and dry summer, which I don't think anybody would mind at this point.
Exactly. Do you remember the weekends?
Oh my gosh.
Last summer?
Terrible. Summer, fall, forget it.
Yeah.
We didn't have any. Yeah, it's we're due for a nice, dry, kind of quiet stretch.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see, we're running at about, let's see if we get any messages here. All right. So
I think the biggest wild card, just to get back to this storm, is definitely the snowfall. I think that what we'll be looking at over the next 24 hours is, how much snow can we accumulate outside of those elevated areas? So around 495 from, say, Lawrence to Westford to Marlborough, I think we'll get snow mixing in, but can it accumulate? And if it does, how much are we talking? And that's really the biggest question to me that's left. Funny, my neighbor, Saturday afternoon, I'm like, what is that sound? He was draining his snowblower of gas. And like, listen, we're probably not going to need the snowblowers around 495, but I would have given it one more week. Just given the forecast.
When did you pull up your snow sticks, though?
Okay, well, but I feel confident that the snow's not going to be that.
Right.
But the snowblower, I might have given it another week. And of course, I'm not the type of guy that go over there and be like, hey, I hear you're draining your snowblower. Yeah. But it does look like after this week, the pattern, probably a decent pattern change, and maybe back to more what folks would think about spring-like weather here.
I saw 60s and even 70s possible,
Yeah.
so that will definitely be a welcome change.
Just gotta get through this week.
Exactly, and it's been so consistent where we've had one or two soaking rains, miserable. Hopefully we can change that around, right?
Agreed. Yes. I mean, the spring season. My son plays baseball. The spring sports are starting. We need, again, given last spring, last summer, like we just need a good stretch of weekends. Let the kids get out and play soccer, play baseball. And again, after this week, I feel like there's hope. I don't know if we want to touch on the eclipse at all.
Yeah,
it
let's
is a
do that
weekend today.
Let's do that. So the eclipse, obviously, huge news. We've been talking about it for years. It seems like. I think actually Eric did a story 1 year ago.
I believe he did.
Year looking ahead. For New England, prospects looking decent, if not good, in this area.
In fact, I mean, again, you don't want it 7 days off, right? But if you were to take most longer range models right now, New England looks like it may be one of the better locations in the entire path through North America.
Which again, if you would have said that going into this,
completely opposite what you would have expected.
Exactly.
Right.
Eric and I, we're going to Texas. We may not end up in Texas though.
Right.
We'll see where we have to drive to, and Alyssa's going to Indianapolis.
Yeah.
That entire path from Texas to Indianapolis looks to be, at the very least, unsettled. Hopefully we can get some clearing, potentially some severe weather though.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, down in Texas, if it's not if it's severe weather and it's thunderstorms, like you wonder, okay, so it could very well mean that, okay, it's coming in later in the afternoon. It's too early to tell.
Right, exactly.
So I wouldn't completely, if you're headed to Texas like Jacob, I wouldn't completely,
change your plans just
I wouldn't
yet.
do it just yet. I'd give it a couple of days. But for those folks that are going to be here or headed up to northern New England, like so far so good. It definitely doesn't look stormy. I think the only question is how quickly does the storm that's coming Wednesday, Thursday, it's going to stick around and linger through the weekend, at least as far as the cloudiness goes. How quickly does that move out? And is there anything left cloud-wise come Monday?
Right. And if you are planning on going, plan ahead.
No doubt.
Plan ahead because traffic is going to be a nightmare.
Yeah.
Roads in and out of northern New England, not known for being wide and accommodating.
Yeah.
So what I would do if I was in the area is probably drive overnight and find a place to kind of just park a little bit, try to avoid daylight driving.
Yeah, I mean, I think from what I've heard, a lot of the hotels are sold out.
Yeah.
But I don't think I would plan to just, you know what, that's going to happen at 3:30 in Burlington. I'll leave in about noon and see if I can get up. No, not a good idea.
Not going to happen.
Not a good idea. But maybe you if the hotels are booked, you drive it the night before, you tent out if the weather's nice somewhere, and I don't know.
I've been known to sleep in a car if I have to.
There you go.
Yeah.
And not to say,
I
don't know that if you haven't been in a total eclipse, I don't think you can really fully explain to somebody, like, it is worth the trip.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that having not witnessed one myself, but talking to Eric and others that have done it, it's worth the trip to be in the path of totality.
It's unlike anything else we experience. Yeah. And to be able to expose people that aren't maybe as in tune with science, to expose them to the space and to the world around us is really important.
It's an experience. And again, some folks here were saying, oh, we're heading up to Loon, we're heading up to, there's a special package. They're in like 98% totality, so it's going to be great. No.
It's not the same.
It's not the same. You got to go, if you're going to go that close, go to the 100% eclipse, path. It's really worth the extra couple miles.
So, to recap, we'll get rid of this storm. Hopefully it gets out of here by Sunday. That's really going to be our next chance for sunshine after maybe this afternoon is Sunday. And then we'll cross our fingers that Monday stays clear too.
Yeah, and obviously we'll be updating all week long, folks on the storm, and then on the eclipse forecast as well.
Absolutely. So stay tuned this evening for Eric Fisher's forecast on WBZ, and we're going to try to do more of these. We'll have to come up with a cool name in a jazzy jingle and everything.
Jerry. Yeah, we'll run it through. We'll run it through the.
We'll throw it up the flagpole. Yeah, we'll workshop it. But thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to start to do these more often, and hopefully we figure out a way to maybe get some viewer questions in here too.
That would be lovely. Yeah, break it up a little bit, answer some questions, and
definitely. Have a good one, guys. We'll see you soon.